Once again, Fujimoto has done the impossible. He's convinced me within the last arc we were taking a slower, slightly more slice-of-life approach, and unironically had this very idea fall on my own head. This is Chainsaw Man at its best. A complete uncertainty of whether Denji will be riding something ridiculous like a shark, or whether he will be focused on his life as a single dad still trying to get laid. Being both a single dad and a virgin simultaneously is kind of a paradoxical concept, but I digress. I was caught in a whirlwind of chaos as is fitting for the introduction of a primal fear, but I was even more compelled by an immense trepidation in regards to what is to come. Not only has this arc left me itching for what else Fujimoto has in store for us, but this arc showed an immensely poignant perspective on dealing with the loneliness and loss that faces both Denji and Asa. The chilling prophecy of Nostradamus, a questionable Chainsaw Man imposter, a primal fear, and the 4 Horsemen. Oh boy, we have a lot to talk about. I know it's been a long time since the last video, but if you're new to this series, I cover Chainsaw Man from a completely blind perspective of never having read the manga, and spoiler alert, I f***ing love it. These are my completely blind thoughts, impressions, and review of Chainsaw Man's Falling Devil arc. After my few-month-long break from Chainsaw Man, I was unsure what to expect. After the dating Denji arc, I was expecting the more relaxed pace of Chainsaw Man to continue, and although I say it's a more relaxing pace, let me clarify, this is relaxed by Chainsaw Man standards. I mean, after part 1's non-stop turbulence, this felt like a walk in the park, and this arc even begins in that fashion. Well, at least for 80% of the first chapter. With Yoshida and Asa having coffee together, my general distrust of Yoshida began to flare up once more, and they discussed the concept of living life on your own. That the solitary life is in fact less risky, and you can have a parasocial relationship through books and media. And this is Fujimoto breaking the fourth wall and looking me dead in the eyes as I discuss fictional stories and my attachment to him. Hey, joke's on you, Fujimoto, I have a girlfriend. I feel what Yoshida's statement is getting at is that this generation's aversion to true authentic relationships. As he says, there's no guarantee you'll build a mutually beneficial relationship. However, that's life. You risk it all on the hopes of finding true love, and I think that that risk is something both beautiful and scary. Maybe I'm fixating too much on the small dialogue, but hey guys, ask her out, be greedier. With Yoshida sharing her belief, Asa seems to think that he likes her because he's affirming her values. Yep, she is certainly in a perpetual state of delusion. After all, Yoshida tells her to leave Denji alone instead. Look, Asa, he doesn't like you, he seems to like our boy Denji. However, I think there's a more nefarious reason behind Yoshida's aversion to Asa becoming close to Denji. With each passing arc, I slowly feel Yoshida's presence become continually more ominous, especially after his interaction with Fami. I don't buy into the theory that he's the death devil since all the Horsemen are women, but it's clear he knows a little too much to just be a standard agent of the public safety. Within part 1 of Chainsaw Man, there was a ton of foreshadowing to Yoshida playing a big role, and it's finally coming to fruition within part 2. With us now switching to Denji moping about after the cockblock devil has left him feeling like he'll never have a girlfriend, Nayata smells something nasty. Both Makima and Nayata obviously share a keen sense of smell, and with Nayata saying it's the nastiest devil scent she's ever smelled, the hairs on my arm immediately stood up. My first thoughts were her smelling the last remaining Horseman, or in fact a primal fear, and I got hyped off my own speculation. The last time a primal fear was introduced, it was literally sickening as it mutilated like half the story, so I knew we were in for a treat. As we're brought back to our poor Asa, she's full of sorrow and perpetual loneliness. In fact, she's down so bad she has a literal devil boost her morale. I continually feel empathy for Asa. Due to her disposition, she views any kindness as a sign someone likes her, and subsequently gets her hopes up only to be let down. The feelings overwhelm her, believing there's nothing good about her, that she doesn't have anything to live for. She's tired of everything. Then maybe she'd be better off dead. I'm sure many of us can relate to these feelings at some point in our lives. The feelings of never being good enough and just wanting to give up. Asa's feelings towards these trials are handled so differently than Denji, and that's what I believe makes her so compelling. She's tragically relatable. This aspect to her character leaves so much room for growth and development, and I'm so excited at the prospect of witnessing her overcome these struggles, this darkness. Despite Yoru's speech to her, she's unable to think too long on it as an individual drops from the top of an apartment, and there's a terrifying panel of Asa looking up as innumerable individuals stare down at her. This was the moment I knew this arc would be insanity. My immediate speculation was that this could be the suicide devil, especially given the context of the thoughts of Asa, and I was on the edge of my seat to watch the events unfold. However, we're briefly taken to Yoshida and Fami eating together, and the relationship doesn't seem very amicable, which implies to me that perhaps they aren't working together as closely as I imagined. I love that Fami and Denji both love to waste his money. Yoshida, however, drops a huge plot bombshell, the prophecy of Nostradamus. In the 7th month of 1999, a great king of terror will descend, the end of humanity as we know it. This prophecy is somewhat confirmed through the future devil, and Fami is high on the suspicion list regarding it. Fujimoto is slowly giving us a hint of what Fami could be up to, and my god, this is only getting better and better. Yoshida's statement to Fami imply actually to me that she's been somewhat neutral towards him, but if she's connected to this prophecy, Yoshida will personally come for her. I have no idea how much power he harbors, but to threaten a horseman takes some balls. Fami clearly knows of this prophecy as well, in fact a little too much, and she even knows that the first devil to shepherd the world to terror is exactly where Asa is. A devil whose name is a primal fear. What follows is a chilling scene of a normal evening for a couple ending in taking their own lives. With Yoru knowing what's to come, she creates a sword and she quickly realizes this is a fight she cannot win, and we see the grotesque form of this primal fear. Sporting numerous limbs that are disjointed and akin to a human form, her name is revealed to be the Falling Devil. I was left bewildered after this reveal. If she's a primal fear of falling, why does it seem these individuals don't just fall, they take their own lives? I quickly came to the conclusion as I read further that although her name is the Falling Devil, it isn't exactly literal. She has individuals fall into despair. Their deepest and darkest emotions surface, which results in them subsequently taking their own lives. A chilling power and one that Asa has no natural counter against. After all, these emotions she already struggles with, but now they surface even more as we're brought to a horrific backstory about her cat. The more we learn about Asa, the more tragic I realize her entire life is, and despite Yoru's efforts to snap her out of it, Asa falls deeper and deeper. The explanation of her power is that the lower the heart sinks, the higher the body falls, and my god, Asa has sunk down so deep. I found it fascinating that Fujimoto didn't take the same route as the previous primal fear, whose design to me was a lot more terrifying. The Falling Devil is much more unsettling, but due to her humanoid features and the speaking about starting to cook, I didn't feel as much inherent fear surrounding her, instead just anxiety because of how humanoid she appeared. Don't get me wrong, her ability and form is terrifying, but she has so much more explanation and characterization than the previous primal fear, which I believe made the former a little bit more terrifying. However, Fujimoto uses this fear to really focus on Asa, whereas the last fear was instead an agent of chaos and destruction. It's fitting for Asa's first primal fear she faces to be falling, as Asa has fallen down her entire life and is the theme of her character. Yoru does everything in her power to stop her from having this final fall in these moments, going so far as to create a nail knife. I had no idea Yoru could use Asa's own body to construct weapons, and it's a valid tactic as she uses it to cut herself so Asa can focus on the pain rather than the fear. It's rare we see Yoru pressed, but she knows exactly what's at stake, and despite her efforts, Asa still fears Yoru, which means Yoru can't take over her body. Asa truly feels she has no one in the world, not even the devil in her heart she believes to be on her side. With the Falling Devil's powers, Asa's negativity is heightened and it reaches a culmination as she presents her internal dichotomy of the fear of solitude and companionship simultaneously. This is the essence of Asa, an internal paradox, and Yoru can see this. I feel this is an amazing step in Yoru and Asa's relationship because this is Asa the most vulnerable. I can only hope that this dynamic continues further and that Yoru continually tries to pull Asa away from this darkness, as Asa has already made Yoru so much softer through this relationship. As well, the paneling of Yoru being upside down talking to Asu was phenomenal in conveying the perspectives, and it really enforced the idea of the joint consciousness. Asa's fear she discusses is indicative of her life in the human experience. Fujimoto in part 1 and part 2 focuses on the central theme of learning to be human. In this case of Asa, she will have to understand that companionship can indeed result in being alone and being burned, but it is worth the risk. Friendships and relationships can take you to the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, but it's part of being human. I love witnessing this vulnerability and this reflection to her own reality. However, the timeliness of it isn't ideal as the Falling Devil prepares the final course of Asa and Yoru. The Falling Devil has this nasty centipede-looking creature and is genuinely disgusting. Props to Fujimoto for bringing some more Lovecraftian designs. The Falling Devil goes to the grocery store, and it threw me back to chainsawman eating at the burger joint, and it always makes me chuckle at these devils doing varying human activities because of how ridiculous it is. There were some unnamed devil hunters who arrived to help, but with the Falling Devil's destructive power, she wiped them out almost immediately. I believe this destruction was a result of her anti-gravity abilities, and I love this ability. It gives such a helpless feeling which fits with her very theme. Upon rereading, I also saw Fujimoto slipped in a reference to Newton's law of gravity within the Falling Devil picking up the apple, and thereby reinforcing the notion that she can control gravity. Before the Falling Devil can enact even more destruction, a new chef takes over to cook, and that's our motherfucking boy Denji, who puts the Falling Devil on the menu as Denji is pissed she stole some apples. Immediately I thought of the prospect that what is to come is more of Fujimoto's vor interest, and although he really enjoys references to previous scenes, the Gravity Devil leaves no time for vor. As much as I loved seeing Denji arrive, I feared what was to come once he was met with the powers of this devil. Denji seems relatively happy always, but that's because he's avoided falling into despair and focusing on the loss of his closest friends. With this, Denji does fall, and the falling devil can focus on her sole objective of feeding Asa and Yoru to hell. Seeing Aki in power once more made my heart ache at remembering the tragedy of their deaths and imagining the weight Denji carries with him every day as a result. Before it could become too sad, however, Denji comes back screaming that when fighting devils who manipulate his brain, he simply cuts his brain up. Absolutely fucking incredible. As he lets out random nonsense due to this impaired brain injury, the gory fight continues, but no matter what Denji does, he doesn't get the upper hand and he eventually loses. As Denji lies on the floor bleeding out and mutilated, he's fed the blood from some mysterious individual who tells him he still needs to fight. My speculation initially was that it could be Yoshida, however I feel Fujimoto would have shown him, so my next thought was that this could be the Chainsaw Man imposter whose identity remains unknown. The amount of times Denji has been mutilated only to be fed blood to keep fighting is ridiculous, and I'm all here for it. The falling devil arrives before Asa and she hangs by a thread as the devil tells her that she can sense her weak attachment to life, that all Asa fears is the physical sensation of falling in the dark sky, that she truly doesn't fear dying. This was the most terrifying part of this arc for me. The falling devil is so calm in assuring that this fall will be peaceful and there's nothing to fear for her death. When something so dark as a devil being the voice of reason to an individual so close to the edge like Asa, it's terrifying, and we see Yoru scream out to Asa as she begins to remember all her loss and pain, and she takes the plunge. My god, it felt like this was the end, and Yoru could do nothing but sit and watch. Asa felt at peace falling, and it reminded me of her opening chapter feeling like she'd no longer be a burden when approaching her death. It's so poignant and heartbreaking for her to lament her own existence and just want to be done with everything. However, similarly in her opening chapter, there is one thing she regrets before dying. In this case, she wishes she could have connected with someone, even if it was only a singular person. Asa's character keeps developing further and further, and I just want to see her get a win in life. Denji appears out of nowhere and catches the falling Asa, and he tries to tell her happy thoughts because the worse she feels, the higher she goes up. Asa believes no one has it worse than her, but Denji is here to be her other side of the same coin. He knows how lonely life is and how hard it is to continue each and every day. He too isn't over his loss, but he keeps pushing onward because he found something to live for. Something he desires so much he's willing to endure all the pain that life throws at him. Just as I was hoping for an emotional statement, Denji breaks the ice and tells her this very purpose in life for him is sex. Denji, you never let me down. Despite the comedy of this scene, this is a really applicable life concept. Life can be miserable at times and you can suffer and lose everything that's important to you. But what makes it all the more bearable is hope and having a purpose. When I lost my mom a year ago, I could have easily fallen into despair and darkness. And although I'm not over her passing, what makes it bearable is finding something to live for. As much as Fujimoto makes these emotional scenes comedic, the message is always something authentic to the human experience, and it's one of the very reasons I love this story. As much as Denji has grown, how the hell did I expect him to change his dream? I burst out laughing as Asa's disgust for Denji's purpose was palpable, and Denji explains the beauty and power of sex. It makes you almost forget that they're fighting for their lives, and Asa shits on Denji's dream by telling him no one would want to have sex with a man whose head is a chainsaw. Brutal. This hurt Denji so bad that he began to fall upwards even higher than Asa at the prospect of never having sex. This right here is the exemplification of Chainsaw Man. Without the prospect of sex, Denji has nothing to live for, and they hysterically fall into hell. This chapter was undoubtedly a 10 out of 10 for me. I have no idea what devils all exist within hell, but it looks far different this time. It's full of immense darkness, and the falling devil once more appears to tell Denji to leave Asa, and he can leave freely, only for Denji to ask if he can take her ass with him. I literally spit out my water reading this because this is the most down bad horny thing he's ever said. To my surprise, however, the falling devil is cut up by the Chainsaw Man imposter, and we don't even see their face, just the chainsaw as they instruct Denji to evade these devils until sunrise as they won't stop trying to kill Asa. I had so many questions arise with this appearance, and there's so many theories that came to my head for fake Saw Man. Perhaps there is a mimic devil of sorts that can take on the appearance and abilities of Denji, but I feel this doesn't hold much weight as the devil is clearly deeply interested with Denji to begin with. Although a long shot, a part of me has always thought that Pochita's real identity isn't the Chainsaw Devil, but perhaps a primal fear because the concept of erasing other devils' existences seems extremely unrelated to chainsaws. On the other hand, this fake Saw Man could be a part of Pochita split off from Denji similarly to how Pochita did in the final arc of part 1, but it confuses me as to why he would call Denji Chainsaw Man if this was the case. Nonetheless, I'm full of questions, but for now, fake Saw Man is an ally. If you have any theories, please let me know because your boy's brain is jumbled. With the assistance of hiXtrah, they leave Hell, but Denji's body is in a bleeding out state once more. This leaves the opportunity for Asa to take out the Chainsaw Man and as a result regain her body. But Asa instead chooses to repay her debt and she feeds Denji her blood despite Yoru's dismay. Yoru literally has to watch as Asa saves her mortal enemy, and it's a huge development for Asa and potentially Yoru. I feel the story has been continually leading for Yoru to align with Chainsaw Man and change her motive, and this could perhaps be the first step towards this. In fact, I want to see them team up to stop the prophecy. Asa has an interesting motivational line that if a piece of trash like Denji is allowed to keep living, then maybe it's okay for her to live too. Wow, put that up in a classroom. This also felt like a reference to Nico Robin's almost identical statement within Eni's lobby, and if it is, props to Fujimoto for paying respects. I love callback panels, and before Asa's impalement by this odd devil, she tells Chainsaw Man to save her, and that he does. I love that the paneling emphasizes how fast Denji recovers and brings her to safety. It's like hearing those words triggers something deeply within him that makes him more powerful than ever. As they flee, they steal a motorcycle, and Asa uses her power in a way I don't think Yoru could have ever expected. She turns the motorcycle into a Super Chainsaw Man motorcycle, and subsequently we have come full circle as Denji once more rides something ridiculous throughout a city being destroyed. He's definitely upgraded from a shark, and now he's a proper superhero with his super vehicle. Denji acquired this motorcycle in a very sexist motivation. He sees no problem with stealing from men, so huzzah, fuck the patriarchy. I always forget that Denji doesn't know that Asa is a regular human, so in Denji's dumb brain he believes this to be his own power. I can just already imagine him trying this on varying things, now wondering why in the hell his ability won't work. This tentacle looking devil they're evading is quite grotesque, and anytime I see tentacles on screen it makes me weary to say the least. But he also has the ability to create a mallet with his fist, and it's not explained what devil this is, but it's honestly ridiculous. With 6 spreads in a single chapter, Fujimoto cooks with the paneling of destruction and chaos unfolding, and a few of these spreads are genuinely some of his most detailed drawings I've seen. Chainsaw Man thrives in its seamless action paneling, and this entire arc has been the exemplification of this. With this unknown devil swallowing both Denji and Asa, I was expecting Denji to cut their way out of it instead of it throwing them up, and the punishment for this devil who didn't finish its meal is some insane gravity destruction that annihilates it. Soon the arc reaches one of my favorite moments, because never did I think I'd see a primal fear bow its head and apologize to anyone or anything. As we learn the entity the falling devil is subservient to and fears is none other than Fami, who forces this devil to return to hell. Holy shit, I didn't expect this kind of power. Even in hell, the last primal devil didn't fear Makima, who was the control devil, so perhaps Fami is even more powerful than her. Soon it made so much sense exactly how Fami knew what was to come and where the first devil to shepherd the world into terror would be. She was the one pulling the strings, well, at least in this case. With Fami forcing the falling devil to return, she picks up what looks like a sigil of sorts from the body, which leaves me with even more questions. Hell, if I thought the closing chapter to this arc couldn't get even better, Nayata appears as she's the one who made the devil vomit up Denji and Asa, subsequently ruining the plan of Fami. All of a sudden, here now we have 3 of the 4 horsemen together, and I honestly didn't think I would get that within this arc. Also, holy shit, Nayata came in so clutch. She evidently has good control over her power, and she somehow has knowledge of Fami being her sister. It must be some innate knowledge within all the horsemen on the identity of each other despite their forms changing, which is a super interesting concept. Props to Nayata showing up and being a protective sister and keeping our boy safe, but I wonder how in the hell she knew where to go. As we question the mysterious Fami, we learn that she's actually only after Asa and Yoru and not particularly Denji, but all because of Nostradamus' prophecy. This prophecy would end the age of humans, ushering an age of devils, and despite being a devil herself, she doesn't want this. In fact, if there's an age of devils, as she tells Nayuta, pizza and Chinese food would cease to be. What a poignant line from Fami. I love that the horsemen truly enjoy living as humans and the delicacies of the human world like movies, pizza, and Chinese food. However, I'm sure there's more underneath the surface on the prophecy of Nostradamus. Fami states that her nor Nayata nor the Chainsaw Man will be able to stop the prophecy. However, Yoru could potentially stop it, which is why she wanted to starve Yoru within the devil's belly so she could turn her into her pawn. So once more, it seems that Fami's power derives off those being insanely hungry for something and being famished. She can control their bodies as a result. This makes the aquarium's motivation all the more obvious. Fami wants Yoru, and clearly she knows something about her power and prophecy that we don't. In terms of the power scaling of the horsemen, I don't know if this puts Yoru as the strongest horseman given that she's the only one who can stop the prophecy, or it's a mere stipulation regarding her power that would somehow counter whatever the prophecy of Nostradamus is, but I'm more than excited to learn more of the potential of Yoru because we've only barely scratched the surface with her abilities. Because after all, if Chainsaw Man can't stop the prophecy despite being the hero of hell and the most feared amongst the devils, then how the hell could Yoru possibly stop it? With each passing day, the prophecy draws closer and closer. I can only imagine that it'll take all of the Horsemen and Denji to stop it. However, a part of me believes that one of the last Horsemen to usher in Nostradamus' prophecy will be the fourth missing Horseman, but I guess we'll have to see. The Falling Devil was the first of the 7 to usher in the new ages of devils, meaning there's 6 more to come before this prophecy comes to fruition. In this case, Fami seems to have been the one orchestrating the Falling Devil, so with her motivation to stop the prophecy, I wonder how she got in contact with the Falling Devil and how she made a primal fear of all things subservient to her. It's clear Fami has even more questions around her after this moment, but hopefully the old phrase, "the enemy of my enemy is my friend," will hold true as they do everything possible to stop this Age of Terror from coming to pass. Upon asking Nayata to help in her plan to stop the prophecy in Age of Devils, Nayata refuses because she has school. Denji clearly raised her right, and if that isn't a damn good excuse as to why she can't help, then I sure as hell don't know what is. Chainsaw Man's characters give the most simple answers to any extreme situations, and it's refreshing and makes this story all the more unique. To summarize the great motivations of our sexless protagonist and our new antagonist within Fami, sex and food. Pretty essential in the hierarchy of needs, so it in fact makes sense. The conclusion of this arc brought about more questions than answers, and it sets up the plot tremendously for what's to come. However, I do wish the pages were longer because towards the end of the arc they definitely felt shorter, but I guess it's just a testament to me wanting even more from this brilliant piece of work. Finally, within Fami, who was shrouded in mystery all this time, we have some characterization and motivation behind her, and from my impression, she isn't a true objective evil. However, she's still a very shrouded antagonist. I'm a giant Fami fanboy, and I'm itching to see her further ingratiated into the plot. With their statements regarding Yoru, I know we'll be seeing even more of Yoru's power and hopefully a backstory. This prophecy is one of the greatest plot points of the story up until now, and I imagine this will be in-game for our beloved Chainsaw Man series. The Falling Devil arc was brilliant, and it was a great reminder of just how incredible Chainsaw Man can be, full of chaos, laughter, and surprisingly depth. And hell, how could I not love it when Denji got a cool new ride? Beneath the surface, this arc has been a roundabout way of how to keep yourself going despite whatever battles you may face. It's finding the small things to live for, or in the case of Asa, living in spite it all. Where Chainsaw Man shines to me is mixing in these true testaments to the human experience amongst all the action and chaos, and reminding us as an audience that our struggles aren't unique to us, we're never alone, and despite whatever battles we may face, we should push on and fight another day. This is one of the reasons I love fiction. This is one of the reasons I love Chainsaw Man. What will happen next? Will we unveil the identity of the fake Saw Man? Will the Horsemen unite with Denji to stop the prophecy? Will Asa and Yoru unveil their latent power? And most importantly, will Denji finally get laid? I guess we'll find out next time. If you stuck around this long, please do consider dropping a subscription to see more videos just like this. This has been hiXtrah, and as always, be greedier, and I will catch you all next time.